The stars twinkled quietly in the vast darkness of space as Commander Oliver Thompson stood on the bridge of the HMS Stellar Pioneer. His eyes moved between the main viewport and the various screens showing ship data. The Pioneer might not have been the prettiest ship in space, with its boxy shape and plain metal hull, but it was humanity's first real deep space vessel. "Commander, I'm picking up multiple signals ahead," First Officer Emma Harrison called out from her station. Her fingers moved quickly across the control panel as she worked to clear up the readings. "They're big, sir. Much bigger than us." Oliver nodded, maintaining his calm despite the unexpected news. They hadn't expected to meet anyone out here, so far from Earth. The Pioneer had been sent to explore, not to make first contact. But as his old flight instructor used to say, space is full of surprises. "Distance?" Oliver asked, keeping his voice steady for the crew's benefit. "About 30,000 kilometers in closing," Emma replied. "They appear to be moving in formation. Definitely not natural objects." The bridge crew worked quietly at their stations. Everyone knew what this meant. Humanity's first contact with alien life wouldn't be on some distant planet, but here in the empty space between stars. "Communications Officer Bennett, prepare all first contact protocols," Oliver ordered. Rachel Bennett, seated at the communications station, began preparing the universal greeting message they had practiced countless times during training. The alien ships came into view on the main screen. They were beautiful in a way that made the Pioneer look like a child's building blocks. Their hulls gleamed with a silvery purple sheen, and they moved through space with grace that seemed to deny physics itself. "They're hailing us," Rachel announced, her hand hovering over the accept button. On screen, Oliver commanded, straightening his uniform. The main view screen flickered to life, revealing a creature that looked almost like a tall human with silvery skin and large almond-shaped eyes. The alien wore what appeared to be a uniform decorated with complex patterns. "This is Commander Oliver Thompson of the Earth vessel HMS Stellar Pioneer," Oliver said clearly. "We come in peace and friendship." The alien's expression changed in a way that Oliver didn't need a translator to understand. It was looking at them with something between amusement and disgust. "This is Admiral Xintol of the Galactic Council Patrol Fleet," the alien replied in perfect English. "Thanks to their advanced translation technology. Are you actually traveling through space in that container?" The insult was clear, but Oliver kept his diplomatic smile. "The Pioneer is humanity's first deep space vessel. She may not look impressive, but she's gotten us this far." A sound like tinkling bells came through the speakers. Laughter, Oliver realized. The alien admiral was laughing at them. "Look at those crude thrusters," another alien voice came through. "And that primitive hull design. It's amazing they haven't fallen apart." Emma's face reddened with anger, but she held her tongue. William Fletcher, their chief engineer, muttered something under his breath about fancy-pants aliens from his station. "Interesting that you can achieve faster-than-light travel with such basic technology," Admiral Xintol said, not bothering to hide his mockery. "Perhaps you should turn back to your home system. Deep space is no place for vessels held together with, what do you humans call it? Duct tape." Oliver felt his crew's anger, but he also saw an opportunity. These aliens were underestimating them, badly. He'd seen that kind of attitude before, back in flight school when the rich kids with their fancy planes looked down on his second-hand craft. They'd learned their lesson then, and these aliens would learn it now. "Admiral," Oliver said politely, "while our ship may not meet your aesthetic standards, we are quite capable of handling ourselves in space. Perhaps a demonstration would be in order." The alien admiral's eyes narrowed, and that bell-like laughter came again. A demonstration. From this primitive vessel. He turned to speak to someone off-screen, then faced Oliver again. "Very well, Commander. Let's see what your ship can do." Oliver allowed himself a small smile. He could feel the excitement building among his crew. The aliens had no idea what they were about to witness. Sometimes, the best technology wasn't the shiniest. It was the kind that got the job done. And the Pioneer was very, very good at getting the job done. Admiral Qintal's face filled the main screen of the Pioneer, his silver skin reflecting the lights of his ship's bridge. "Since you're so confident in your—" He paused, as if searching for the right word. "Vessel, we have a simple challenge for you." Oliver Thompson stood calmly, hands clasped behind his back. Around him, his crew waited, each ready at their stations. Bill Fletcher, the chief engineer, was already running system checks, his fingers dancing across his control panel with practiced ease. "We're listening, Admiral," Oliver said politely. The alien leader's image was replaced by a map of the nearby space. A dense asteroid field appeared, glowing red dots showing hundreds of spinning rocks of various sizes. "This is the Crimson Belt," Admiral Qintal explained, his voice dripping with amusement. "If your ship is as capable as you claim, surely you can navigate through it." Emma Harrison, the first officer, exchanged quick looks with Lucy Matthews at the navigation station. They both knew what the aliens didn't. This kind of challenge played right into their strengths. "The rules are simple," the Admiral continued. "Enter at point A, exit at point B. No using long-range teleporters, no quantum tunneling, no space folding. Just pure navigation and pilot skill." He smiled, showing teeth that looked like polished pearls. "If you can make it through, we might take you more seriously." Oliver turned to Lucy. "Navigator Matthews, what's your assessment?" Lucy studied the map carefully, her eyes bright with excitement. "Dense field, sir. Most rocks are between 50 and 200 meters across. They're spinning and moving in complex patterns." She looked up at Oliver with a small smile. "Nothing we haven't handled in training." The aliens' laughter echoed through the bridge again. "Training?" One of them scoffed. "You practice flying through asteroid fields." "Of course," Oliver replied simply. "How else would we get better at it?" This seemed to surprise the aliens. Their ships, with all their advanced technology, simply avoided such dangerous situations altogether. The idea of deliberately practicing dangerous maneuvers seemed to confuse them. Bill Fletcher spoke up from his station. "Engineering is ready, sir. All systems at peak efficiency." He patted his console affectionately. "The old girl's ready to show them what she can do." "Very well," Oliver said. He straightened his uniform and addressed the alien admiral. "We accept your challenge, Admiral. Though I have one question. Will your ships be joining us in this demonstration?" The admiral's expression shifted slightly. "Our ships are too valuable to risk in such a crude test. We will observe from a safe distance." Emma couldn't help but smirk. "Afraid your pretty ships might get scratched, Admiral." Oliver shot her a look, but he had to fight to keep his own smile hidden. "We'll proceed alone then. Lucy, take us to the entry point. Rachel, keep communication channels open with our audience." As the Pioneer moved toward the asteroid field, the crew fell into their practiced rhythm. They had spent countless hours in simulators and training runs, preparing for exactly this kind of situation. While the alien ships hung back at a safe distance, Oliver's crew ran their final checks. "You know," Bill said as he made final adjustments to the engine output, "my grandfather used to say that anyone can build a ship that looks good in dock. The trick is building one that looks good after it's done its job." Oliver nodded. "Let's show them what a primitive ship can do." He pressed the ship-wide comm button. "All hands, this is the commander. Secure for complex maneuvering. Let's remind our audience that humanity didn't get to the stars by accident." The Pioneer approached the entrance to the asteroid field, its plain hull reflecting the dim light of distant stars. Behind them, the alien fleet watched, probably expecting to witness a disaster. Instead, they were about to get a lesson in why humans had survived and thrived on their dangerous homeworld. "Beginning approach," Lucy announced, her hands hovering over the controls. "Entry point in 3, 2, 1. The challenge was about to begin, and Oliver knew one thing for certain. By the end of it, those aliens wouldn't be laughing anymore. 6 months before the encounter with the alien fleet, Bill Fletcher stood in front of a group of doubtful government officials in a large meeting room at the Space Development Center in London. Behind him, projected on the wall, was an image of the HMS Stellar Pioneer during its construction. "You want to build it like what?" one official had asked, staring at the simple, boxy design. Bill had smiled and picked up a small metal box from the table. "This is a cockroach," he said, holding it up. "Not a real one, thank goodness, but a robot copy of one. Not pretty, is it? But do you know why cockroaches have survived for millions of years? Because they're practical. They're tough. They adapt." The officials looked confused, but Dr. James Parker, who would later become the ship's chief medical officer, nodded in understanding. He knew where Bill was going with this. "We could make our first deep space ship look beautiful," Bill continued. "We could add smooth curves and shiny panels, but out there in space, looking good won't keep you alive. Being tough will." Now, as the Pioneer faced its challenge, Bill remembered that meeting. The ship's outer hull might look plain, but underneath it was anything but simple. Every part could be repaired or replaced easily. Every system had at least 2 backups. Most importantly, the ship could adapt. In the medical bay, Dr. Parker was checking his equipment when the memory of another meeting came to him. This one had been with Oliver Thompson, just after he'd been chosen as commander. "Our advantages aren't in having the fanciest technology," Oliver had said. "They're in how we think, how we solve problems. Humans have always been good at doing more with less." The ship's computer system was a perfect example. Instead of trying to build one massive, complex computer like most science fiction had imagined, they had created a network of smaller, simpler ones. If one failed, the others picked up the slack. It wasn't elegant, but it worked better than anyone had expected. Emma Harrison walked through the ship's corridors, checking on the crew as they prepared for the asteroid field challenge. She remembered the training sessions, how everyone had complained at first about the difficult exercises. Oliver had made them practice everything that could go wrong, again and again. "In space," he would say, "it's not about if something will go wrong, but when. And when it does, you won't have time to think. You'll only have time to act." The Pioneer's design reflected this philosophy. While other scientists had dreamed of force fields and energy shields, the ship's designers had created a hull that could flex and bend. When something hit it, it absorbed the impact instead of trying to stop it completely. Simple, but effective. Lucy Matthews smiled at her navigation console as she thought about the ship's steering system. The aliens probably expected them to have crude rocket thrusters. Instead, the Pioneer used a clever system of rotating rings filled with dense liquid metal. By moving this liquid around, they could change direction faster than any traditional engine. "It's not about having the most advanced technology," she whispered to herself, remembering Oliver's words. "It's about using what you have in the smartest way possible." In his office, Oliver looked at a photo on his wall. It showed the whole crew standing in front of the Pioneer before their first launch. They hadn't known then that they would be humanity's first ambassadors to an alien civilization. But they had trained for everything they could think of, and then trained some more. The aliens saw a primitive ship held together with simple technology. What they didn't see was the countless hours of preparation, the clever solutions to complex problems, and most importantly, the human spirit that drove it all. Rachel Bennett's voice came over the intercom, interrupting Oliver's thoughts. "Commander, the alien fleet is asking if we're ready to begin the challenge." Oliver took one last look at the photo. "Tell them we're ready," he replied. "And Rachel, make sure they're recording everything. They won't want to miss what happens next." The first asteroid loomed ahead of the Pioneer, a massive chunk of rock spinning slowly in the darkness of space. From the bridge, it looked like a small mountain floating in empty space. Behind it, hundreds more asteroids filled the view screen, moving in their endless dance. "Beginning entry sequence. Lucy announced from her navigation station. Her fingers moved across the controls with careful precision. First obstacle approaching in 30 seconds. Oliver sat in his command chair, his body relaxed but alert. "Bill, how are the engines?" "Purring like a kitten, sir," Bill replied from engineering. "Liquid metal rings are at optimal temperature and flow rate." The first asteroid grew larger on their screen. It was at least twice the size of their ship, its surface scarred and pitted from countless space collisions. To their right, another massive rock spun towards their path, while a cluster of smaller ones moved in from the left. "Showtime," Emma whispered from her station. The Pioneer moved forward, straight toward the first asteroid. The alien fleet, watching from a safe distance, probably thought they were going to crash. Instead, at the last possible moment, Lucy activated the liquid metal rings. The ship didn't just turn, it danced. The Pioneer spun on its axis, slipping through the narrow gap between two asteroids with barely a meter to spare on either side. The movement was smooth, precise, and absolutely beautiful. First obstacle cleared, Lucy reported calmly. Second group approaching. On the communication screen, they could see the aliens' shocked faces. Admiral Kintal's mouth hung open as he watched the supposedly primitive ship move with impossible grace. "How are they doing that?" one of the alien officers demanded. "Their engines shouldn't be capable of such maneuvers." The Pioneer continued its dance. When 3 asteroids threatened to box them in, Lucy didn't try to power through. Instead, she cut the main engines and let Bill's liquid metal rings do their work. The ship rolled and twisted, using the asteroid's own gravity to help pull them through. Multiple contacts, closing fast, Emma called out. A stream of smaller rocks, each still big enough to crack their hull, rushed toward them like angry wasps. Oliver leaned forward in his chair. "Lucy, pattern delta." Lucy's eyes lit up. Pattern delta was one of their more aggressive maneuvers, something they'd practiced countless times, but never used in real space. "Beginning pattern delta," she confirmed. The Pioneer suddenly shot forward, accelerating straight toward the stream of rocks. At the last second, the ship began to spin, but not randomly. Each rotation was precisely timed to slip between the gaps in the asteroid stream. From the alien fleet's view, it must have looked insane. The human ship was spinning like a top, yet somehow threading its way through a field of deadly obstacles, as if they weren't even there. "Sir," Rachel called from her communication station, "the alien fleet is demanding to know how we're managing these maneuvers." Oliver smiled. "Tell them we're just getting warmed up." The deeper they went into the asteroid field, the more challenging it became. But the crew worked together like a well-oiled machine. When a giant asteroid suddenly split into 2 pieces in front of them, Bill adjusted the power flow to the rings without even being asked. When a cloud of dust threatened to blind their sensors, Emma switched to the backup system before Oliver could give the order. "Halfway point reached," Lucy announced. She was smiling now, truly enjoying herself. "And I think I see an even faster route through the next section." Oliver looked at the sensor readings and saw what she meant. A series of larger asteroids had created a sort of tunnel through their gravity wells. It would be incredibly dangerous. One wrong move would pull them straight into a rock face. But it would also be spectacular. "Do it," he ordered. As the Pioneer dove into the gravity tunnel, Oliver heard more shocked exclamations from the alien fleet. They had come to laugh at the primitive human ship. Instead, they were getting a masterclass in spaceflight. And they weren't even close to seeing everything the Pioneer could do. Admiral Kintal's silver face had lost its smug look. On the Pioneer's communication screen, he and his officers watched with growing disbelief as the human ship continued its incredible journey through the asteroid field. "Impossible," one of his officers whispered. "They're using some kind of hidden technology. They must be." Rachel Bennett, monitoring the alien communications, couldn't help but smile as she translated their panicked conversations. "Sir," she called to Oliver, "they're arguing among themselves. Some think we're cheating. Others are demanding to know why their own ships can't move like this. The Pioneer had just entered the most dangerous part of the asteroid field. Here, the rocks didn't just float. They crashed into each other, creating clouds of debris and unpredictable movements. For most ships, it would be certain death. New contact, Emma shouted from her station. Large asteroid breaking up directly ahead. On the main screen, they watched as a massive rock split apart, sending chunks of stone flying in all directions. Each piece was big enough to crush their ship. Behind these, 2 more asteroids were spinning toward each other, about to create another deadly explosion of rock. "Lucy," Oliver said calmly, "show them why we spent 3 months practicing the spiral defense." Lucy's hands flew across her controls. "Spiral defense pattern engaging," she confirmed. "Bill, I'll need extra power to the rear rings." "Already on it," Bill replied from engineering. "Rings 3 and 4 are at 110% capacity." The Pioneer suddenly began to move in a way that seemed to deny the laws of physics. As debris flew toward them from all directions, the ship spun in a spiral pattern, but each spin was different from the last. They curved around the larger chunks while the spiral motion deflected the smaller pieces off their flexible hull. Through the communication channel, they could hear the aliens gasping. Their own ships, for all their advanced technology, couldn't move like this. They relied on force fields and automated systems. The Pioneer relied on human skill and practice. "Sir," Rachel reported, trying to hide her laughter, "Admiral Kintal is ordering his scientists to analyze our movement patterns. They think we've discovered some new law of physics they don't know about." Oliver smiled. "Should we tell them it's just good old-fashioned human piloting?" "Incoming transmission from the Admiral," Rachel announced. The alien leader's face appeared on screen. He looked both angry and amazed. "Commander Thompson," he said, his voice tense, "explain how your primitive vessel is accomplishing these maneuvers." "Practice, Admiral," Oliver replied simply. "Lots and lots of practice." Before the Admiral could respond, another voice cut in. "Sir," Emma called out. "Major collision ahead. 2 asteroids, each about half a kilometer wide. Impact in 30 seconds. The crew watched as 2 massive rocks headed for each other. When they hit, they would fill this whole section of space with deadly debris. They could turn back, but that would mean failing the challenge. "Lucy," Oliver said, "remember that crazy idea you had during training?" "The one I said was too risky to try." Lucy's eyes widened. "The slingshot spiral. But sir, we never actually tested it. It only worked in simulations." "No time like the present," Oliver replied. He pressed the ship-wide comm button. "All hands, brace for extreme maneuvers. Bill, give Lucy everything the rings can handle." "Sir," Emma said, looking at her readings, "the alien fleet is backing away. They think we're about to be destroyed." Oliver gripped his chair's armrests. "Let's prove them wrong. Lucy, begin the slingshot spiral." As the Pioneer moved forward, directly toward the colliding asteroids, Admiral Kintal's voice came through again. "Commander, abort your approach. No ship can survive what you're attempting." Oliver's only response was a small smile. The aliens were about to learn another important lesson about humans. Telling them something was impossible only made them more determined to prove it could be done. The 2 massive asteroids collided with a silent explosion, sending chunks of rock flying in all directions. But the Pioneer was already in motion, executing Lucy's never-before-tested slingshot spiral maneuver. The ship spun faster than it ever had before, its liquid metal rings pushing their design limits. As they approached the cloud of debris, Bill's voice came from engineering, calm but firm. "Ring temperature's critical. We have maybe 30 seconds at this speed." "That's all we need," Lucy replied, her eyes fixed on her displays. The ship's movement wasn't just a spiral anymore. It was using the gravity of the debris itself, letting each piece pull them slightly before breaking free. From the alien fleet's perspective, It looked like the Pioneer was dancing through a storm of deadly rocks. Each spin took them closer to their goal, each turn precisely calculated to use the chaos to their advantage. Impact in 5 seconds, Emma called out. The largest piece of debris, a jagged rock the size of a small house, spun directly toward them. Instead of avoiding it, Lucy aimed straight for it. Now, Oliver commanded. At the last possible moment, Lucy triggered their final spin while Bill redirected all power to the front rings. The Pioneer curved around the rock so closely that their sensors couldn't even measure the distance. But the maneuver worked perfectly. The rock's gravity combined with their spin gave them exactly the boost they needed. The Pioneer shot through the debris field like a bullet, emerging on the other side completely unharmed. All systems functional, Bill reported, clear pride in his voice. Though I think we'll need to let the rings cool down for a bit. The bridge crew let out a cheer. Even Oliver allowed himself a small fist pump. On their communication screen, Admiral Sintal and his officers stared in complete silence, their silvery faces showing various shades of shock. Finally, the Admiral spoke. "How?" he demanded. "That maneuver should have torn your ship apart. Our best computers say it was impossible." Oliver stood up from his chair. "Admiral, would you like to know the real secret of our primitive ship?" The alien leader nodded slowly. "Everything on this ship was built with one idea in mind. Work with nature, don't fight it. Those rocks out there, we didn't try to power through them or shield against them. We used their own momentum to help us move. But your technology," one of the alien officers began, "is simple by your standards." "Yes," Oliver agreed. "But simple doesn't mean weak. Simple means we understand every part. Simple means we can fix anything that breaks. Simple means we can push our systems to their limits because we know exactly how they'll behave." Bill joined in from engineering. "Your ships are wonderful machines, Admiral, but they're so advanced that they do all the work. Your pilots never learn to feel the ship, to understand how it moves." Lucy smiled at her station. "We practice these maneuvers because we know we can't rely on fancy technology to save us. We have to save ourselves." The Admiral was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke again, his voice had lost all its earlier mockery. "Commander Thompson, I believe I owe you and your crew an apology. We judged your ship by its appearance and assumed that meant we knew its capabilities. Clearly, we were wrong." Oliver nodded in acceptance. "A common mistake, Admiral. But now you understand. Humanity didn't reach the stars by accident. We got here by learning, by practicing, by never giving up when things got difficult. And by building ships that look like boxes," Emma added with a grin. The Admiral actually laughed at that. "Indeed. I suspect the Galactic Council will be very interested in learning more about your approach to space travel." "We'd be happy to teach you," Oliver replied. "Though I should warn you, our training methods can be quite demanding." "Of that," the Admiral said, looking at the asteroid field they had just navigated, "I have no doubt." 2 hours after the asteroid field demonstration, the bridge of the HMS Stellar Pioneer looked very different. Admiral Kintal and 2 of his senior officers stood next to Oliver, examining the ship's control systems with genuine interest. The mockery in their eyes had been replaced by curiosity and respect. "So each of these rings operates independently?" the Admiral asked, watching as Bill Fletcher showed him the engine control panel. "Yes," Bill explained, pointing to the different displays. "That's why we can make such precise movements. Each ring can spin at a different speed and direction. It's like having 4 separate engines working together." The Admiral nodded thoughtfully. "Simple, but brilliant. We became so focused on creating new technology that we forgot about improving the basics." Meanwhile, Lucy was showing the alien navigation officer their training simulator. The alien's eyes widened as she pulled up their practice records. "You did this run 50 times, he asked, looking at one particularly difficult scenario. "But why? Once you succeed, surely there's no need to repeat it." Lucy smiled. Because doing it once might be luck. Doing it 50 times means you understand it completely. In space, you can't rely on luck. At the communication station, Rachel was talking with the alien communications officer about their first contact protocols. We prepared hundreds of different greeting messages, she explained. We didn't know who we might meet out here, so we had to be ready for anything. The alien officer looked impressed. We assumed first contact would be with civilizations that already matched our technology level. We never considered, well, meeting someone who did things differently. Rachel suggested kindly. Emma and Dr. Parker were giving another group of aliens a tour of the medical bay. The aliens were surprised by the simple but effective layout, where everything important could be reached quickly in an emergency. Your entire ship follows this philosophy, one of the alien doctors noted. Everything has a clear purpose. Nothing is wasted on mere appearance. Oliver watched all of this from his command chair, feeling proud of his crew and their ship. A message from Earth had arrived just minutes ago, and he was waiting for the right moment to share it. Finally, Admiral Kintal returned to the bridge's center. Commander Thompson, he said formally, I have contacted the Galactic Council. They are very interested in learning more about humanity's approach to space travel. Oliver nodded. Funny you should mention that, Admiral. We just received a message from Earth. He pressed a button on his chair, and a holographic image appeared in the air between them. It showed the United Earth Space Command logo. The message reads, Commander Thompson and crew of the Pioneer, congratulations on first contact. Your demonstration has attracted significant attention. The Galactic Council has extended an official invitation for Earth to join as a full member world. The Admiral's eyes widened. That's unprecedented. New species usually spend years as provisional members before being considered for full membership. Oliver continued reading. However, Earth has responded with a counter-proposal. Instead of joining as a standard member, Earth has offered to establish a new training program for the Council's space fleet, teaching our methods and philosophy alongside the Council's advanced technology. The Admiral was quiet for a moment. Then he laughed, not the mocking laugh from before, but a genuine sound of amusement and respect. Of course you did. Even when being offered full membership in the most powerful organization in the galaxy, humans find a way to do things differently. We find it works better that way, Oliver replied with a smile. So, Admiral, would you like to be our first student? The alien leader looked around the bridge of the Pioneer, at the simple but effective design, at the crew who had mastered every aspect of their ship. Commander, he said seriously, I believe I would learn a great deal. As if to emphasize his point, a small asteroid tumbled past the ship's viewport. The Pioneer adjusted its position slightly, smoothly, almost unconsciously. The aliens watched the movement with new eyes, finally understanding that true mastery of space travel wasn't about having the most advanced technology. It was about understanding what you had and making it work perfectly. 1 year after the Pioneer's historic asteroid field demonstration, Oliver Thompson stood in front of a large window at the New Earth Galactic Joint Space Academy. Below him, dozens of ships moved through a training course. Some were sleek and advanced, like the alien vessels he'd first met. Others were simple and sturdy, like the Pioneer. But all of them were flying with the same precise, practiced movements that his crew had shown the galaxy. Quite a sight, isn't it? A familiar voice said behind him. Oliver turned to see Admiral Kintal approaching. The alien leader looked different now. His uniform was simpler, more practical, and he moved with a new kind of confidence. How are your students doing? Oliver asked, nodding toward the training field. The Admiral smiled. Better than I expected. Though I must admit, some of them complained when I made them practice the same maneuver 30 times in a row. Only 30. Lucy Matthews said as she joined them. She had become the Academy's head navigation instructor, teaching both humans and aliens. You're getting soft, Admiral. Around the Academy, the influence of the Pioneer could be seen everywhere. Bill Fletcher had started a new engineering program that taught both advanced alien technology and simple human solutions. Emma Harrison led crisis response training, teaching crews how to handle problems with whatever tools they had available. "Did you see the new ship designs?" the Admiral asked, pointing to a diagram on the wall. It showed a vessel that looked like a perfect blend of human and alien technology. "They're calling it the Pioneer class. Simple enough to fix, advanced enough to outperform anything else in space." Oliver nodded approvingly. "And how many have been built so far?" 50, the Admiral replied, with another 100 on the way. "Every major world in the Council wants them." They'd finally understood that the best technology isn't always the most complicated. A group of students walked past them, a mix of humans and various alien species, all wearing the same practical uniforms. They were discussing different ways to handle engine failures, comparing notes on both high-tech and simple solutions. "Commander Thompson," one of the students stopped. "Will you tell us the asteroid field story again? Some of us haven't heard it firsthand." Before Oliver could answer, a new alarm sounded throughout the academy. The Admiral checked his communicator and grinned. "Perfect timing," he said. "We just detected a small meteor shower heading toward the outer training area. Would you like to show these students how the story really happened?" Oliver looked at Lucy, who was already heading toward the nearest ship. "What do you think? Should we give them a demonstration?" The students gathered around excitedly as Oliver, Lucy, and the Admiral walked to the landing bay. The ship waiting for them was a new Pioneer-class vessel, a perfect mix of human ingenuity and alien technology. "You know," the Admiral said as they boarded, "some members of the Council still can't believe how much things have changed in just 1 year. They keep asking how humans managed to influence galactic ship design so quickly." Oliver smiled as he sat in the pilot's seat. It was identical to his old one on the Pioneer, just with a few more advanced displays added. "We didn't do it by having better technology," he said. "We did it by showing them a better way to use the technology they already had." The ship lifted off smoothly, heading toward the meteor shower. Behind them, the students watched from the observation deck, about to see firsthand why the Pioneer had become a legend. "Ready to show them how it's done?" Oliver asked. Lucy's hands moved to the controls, the same basic layout she'd used a year ago. "Always ready, sir." The Admiral strapped himself in, no longer surprised by human training methods. "Just remember," he said, "when we're done, my students will need to practice this 50 times. "Only 50. Oliver grinned. "Admiral, I think you're forgetting the most important lesson we taught you." As the ship accelerated toward the meteor shower, all three of them finished the sentence together. "Practice makes perfect." And in the years that followed, that became the motto of the Academy. Ships would come and go, technology would advance, but the lesson of the Pioneer would remain. It's not about having the best tools. It's about being the best at using the tools you have.